The way I got my first break was I delivered a singing telegram to Gary Owens on the radio as a gorilla. And so I was singing in the commercial, and the next thing I know, I heard it being used as a commercial. And I went, oh my God, I got him. So I was able to, through the back door, get into SAG via AFTRA because they used it as a commercial.
What up, guys? Welcome to the New Jersey HorrorCon Q&A stage. We have the distinct honor with spending time here with one of the greatest actors that has ever walked this earth. Make some noise for the incomparable William Forsythe.
Thank you. I see the crowd has gathered.
Thank you so much for taking the time. You have been one of my favorite actors since I was a little boy. So I want to talk a little bit about the early years if we can, get into some deep cuts because there's a lot to cover. But again, I want to reiterate, this is your panel as well. As soon as I see audience questions, I am happy to start calling them out. I want to talk a little bit about the TV years, doing Chips, Hill Street Blues, TJ Hooker.
You know, the foot in the door was anything. The way I got my first break was I delivered a singing telegram to Gary Owens on the radio as a gorilla. And so I was singing in the commercial, and the next thing I know, I heard it being used as a commercial. And I went, oh my God, I got him. So I was able to, through the back door, get into SAG via AFTRA because they used it as a commercial. So, I mean, look, those were really important days. I mean, back then, any job I got was a mountain, you know, that I climbed. And Chips, of course, was fun, and that's now coming back to haunt us regularly. You know, I see it all the time playing. People are talking about it. You know, I goes, "Hey, would you record that song again?" Yeah.
So was it very difficult to then make the jump from television to features?
I didn't really do that. My first job ever on it was a film. I did a movie that was called King of the Mountain. And one of the stars and the person I got to work with very first ever in a movie was Dennis Hopper. I did a scene that I was in with him, and I got to be with him in the scene, and I learned more about acting, movie acting, than I could have ever imagined just in one evening with him, you know. So,
one of the greats as well, for sure.
An amazing guy, and you know, and a bit of a wild man back then. So, but it was good fun.
That sounds like paradise to me. So the first movie I ever saw you in when I was very young was the incredible Once Upon a Time in America, one of the all-time greats, right? Yes, thank you. Absolutely.
You know, one of the greatest films maybe ever made.
Yes.
You know, you talked about Chips. I have to laugh. The great Sergio Leone, he wanted to see whatever footage I had on myself, and the best piece of footage I had on myself was Chips. So I gave him a copy with commercials, and he watched the whole thing. So, yeah. We can imagine Sergio Leone watching Chips. You know, take a hunk of concrete. That was wild.
So, of course, I have to ask about Raising Arizona, another one of my all-time favorites. Any memories from that?
You know, the movie, I mean, I'm not sure where I stood with anybody that was making it, like the filmmakers, because I have never worked with them since. But for me, it was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had on a set with actors, the way the film was directed, the way the brothers interacted. It was priceless. I mean, one would just be there thinking, another would be kind of pacing, and suddenly they would both turn around and say the same thing. It was genius. And you know, John and I, all we tried to do was make each other laugh constantly, you know, to, you know, mess up a take. We tried to out-snore each other. It was, you know, a piece of special. I mean, Nick was 22 at the time when we made it, and, you know, and there we were in the middle of Phoenix. I mean, I think the movie was either a $2 million or slightly under it budget. And to the Coen brothers at that time, that was a huge budget because they had made, you know, Blood Simple for a lot less money. So, you know, it was a great experience. And what I love about it the most is the movie's still funny. It's still good. And if you were to watch it, it doesn't date itself at all. It's fantastic. You know?
100%. Yeah. Definitely one of my first Blu-rays that I ever purchased. So that's amazing. So I do want to give the audience a chance to jump in there. I don't want to hog the mic too much, but I know it takes a while for the room to warm up. So if you're not ready yet, that's okay by me, because then I get to ask. Oh yeah. All right.
My name is Angel Amoroso. Hello, William. I have a question. So very simple, what is your favorite movie of all time to watch? And then what is your all-time favorite movie that you've starred in?
Well, you've come to the wrong place. I don't do favorites.
Okay.
I hate favorites. I'm I'm one of those people that I can't narrow my taste or my desires into one thing, you know, and so I find it really hard. Great filmmakers. I always will love Frank Capra. I love Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, my earliest influences were from the great classic movies. These are the movies that, you know, brought my attention and my interest in making film. It's so hard to pick one. And of my work, I mean, my God, you know, Sid Haig once said, which finger do you like more? You know,
Right.
It's hard to pick it, you know. If you're lucky, 1 out of 10 movies you do will be something special. And it's probably about that average. I've probably at this point, I don't know, done 160 or something movies or combined stuff. And, you know, that's probably about right. You know, and most of those are on the table, so, you know.
Now, is there any roles that you haven't played that you would like to play in the future?
Always. You know, my hunger knows no bounds. You know, I'm always looking for more, for different things. When it comes to scripts that people send me, I mean, mostly I'm underwhelmed by what I read and what I see. But every once in a while, a great gem comes along. A beautiful character, a complex character, a character that I could find a way to do it that is seamless. And you know, they don't come along often enough. A lot of writing is bad now. A lot of acting is really bad now.
Really bad.
I mean, it's awful. I look at things and I go, what are you doing? It's like
Sort of like music.
all the things that we learn not to do, you're doing. And I find it weird that we've kind of, you know, that's why whenever I meet an actor, I mean, you know, a lot of the older ones are, you know, they're there. Some aren't, but they're there. But when I meet younger actors, and I see that they've got that thing, that, you know, desire to do that kind of work where it's alive, but it's seamless. And, you know, I make sure they know. I let them know, and I give them love because because I don't see enough of it. I see too much of, you know, it looks like acting for a fucking selfie. You know, it's all like, hey, you know, but to me, that's the end of the craft, you know, when we're down to it. See, I mean, everybody complains. A lot of our actors in the country here complain that all those Brits are taking all our roles on TV shows and things like that. And I'm like, well, you know, tough. I said, the reason that happens is because they're more prepared than you. They're doing the work. So I recommend everyone do the work, you know, really try to, you know, if somebody wants to do something, you're supposed to actually learn to do it well, or the best you can, at least. Always try your best. And I don't see it enough. I work with some people, I feel like, you know, say you do a low-budget movie, and they're not quite getting money they're used to getting, so they give you a $20 performance, and that can be with crew people, too. I don't like that. I believe you have to...
get what you pay for.
You have to give 100% to anyone, no matter what, and you have to show up and do that. That makes you, you know, somebody.
So give that 100% all the
Always.
time. Thank you, William.
Always.
Thank you, Angel. It's a great question. So another time you gave 100%. It's a movie that I love 100%. Stone Cold. I have to ask.
That's a guilty pleasure. I wish Stuntman Mike were here. Mike, my buddy Mike, he worked on the film also. It was a crazy movie. I mean, we're shocked. Everybody's shocked that people know about it. But I go anywhere in the world. You know, I'm in Germany. I mean, anywhere I go, people come up and love that movie. And Lance, you know, we're like, why? But we know that when we made the movie, we did not obey the script. The script was not, in my opinion, strong. But we made it our own, and we said whatever the fuck we wanted, and we made that movie that way. And as a result, I think that's the reason. Lance was like that. I was going off that way, and not other actors. And so something happened, that becomes memorable. And it was crazy. I could tell you some of the things we did on the motorcycles. I mean, sometimes I wake up in a dream and I go, what? What's wrong with you? It's like, you have a dream where you were like 14 and you were the guy who climbed the ladder in the cathedral. And suddenly I have that dream and I'm like, what's wrong with you? You're one step from, And that movie was like that a lot. And then the original director, God rest his soul, a good friend, his name was Bruce Malmuth. He also did the movie Nighthawks with Sylvester Stallone. He got fired. And so now, it's the only movie I've ever done where I got paid twice, but we doubled the contract. So it was a 3-month movie, and we ended up being 6 months. And the second director, also a great guy, Craig Baxley, came. And at that point, they didn't want to take any risks with us on motorcycles, so we were on little tricycles being like trolled around the park. If you've ever seen one, it's ludicrous, but they're just filming inside, so it looks like, but in reality, you're on a tricycle, driving down the street, it's like...
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It ruins the magic of movies, but it's incredible. I love it. So the Chicago guy in me just wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't ask about playing Al Capone in The Untouchables.
One of my greatest, my absolute favorite parts I ever played. What can I say? When I took on the role to play Al Capone, I knew I had to do the research, and so I began in Brooklyn, where I'm from, where he was from. And I started my research, and I carried him every step of the way of every stage of his life, right down to his scar in Coney Island, everything. And then I hopped on a train, and I went to Chicago, like he did. And when I got there, I began to meet, by the time it was over with, I met over 100 people that knew Al Capone. And I started with people who knew him really well. And I really was able to get inside and to discover as a human being, things to what he was like. For instance, everybody said they liked him. Everybody said, I'm around long enough to know if people don't like you, people say things. Every person I met that knew him said, no, he was a guy of his word. I said, so there's qualities to him. I mean, look, we know what he did, and we know he had problem with betrayal, and but it is what it is. But there's a deeper side, and I knew the moment I went, I knew I was onto something that was, and I loved it. I loved playing it, and great fun. Got to work with some of my favorite people. One of my favorite people I ever worked with. And I got to work, and I have to say it, he's passed now, was Michael Parks. Michael Parks played Dean O'Banion, and we had these brilliant scenes, and the time of my life. I loved Michael, I respected him. I was a huge fan of Michael, and for some reason, he and I got in there, scared the hell out of the producer. It was great. The night before we're supposed to shoot our big scenes, the producer's out with Michael, and Michael's like, I'll have another, and he's like, it was great. And the producer's just going along for the ride, but he's really nervous. So I suddenly walked in the place, and now it's like all of us going. And we got the big day's work coming. So now it's 3 a.m, it's 4 a.m, and the producer's like, come on, let's go back to the room, And Mike's, yeah, to the minibar. So we end up back in the room. And now we're going at it in the room, and producer's nervous as hell because our call time is at this point probably an hour away, And so finally, about maybe 20 minutes later, I looked at Michael and I go, what say we go freshen up and get ready for our day's work, buddy? And he goes, absolutely. We go in, we freshened up, we went back, And that footage, I'm telling you, it's crazy, but that footage is some of my favorite that we ever shot. It was absolutely, brilliant, and God bless you, Mr. Parks. Yeah.
So as a reminder for me to let the audience get back in, I know I hogged the mic a little too much, but we still, okay, I get it. It's, it's early Saturday, it's cold in the room, but I do have to ask about The Substitute, another one of those movies that made me so grateful to have cable TV when I was a kid.
Well, for me, The Substitute was only one reason. I was signed up to do it, like, let's call it an art film, where I'm not getting paid anything and I'm on it for months. And suddenly they came along and offered me The Substitute, and it was like, well, can you finish filming me in 3 days? And they went, yes. So I showed up, and I did all my work in the movie in 3 days, and I was gone. And so, that crazy character just came running in and running out the door, I made Tom Berenger laugh. I love Tom. And I made him laugh really, really good one day. We're at the shooting range, and it was something I learned when I was a kid, but I was shooting two guns at the same time. But instead of, like we see the old, guys doing this, I shoot them both at the same time. I'm like, and I'm like, and Tom, I turned around and Tom was hysterically laughing, he just, Anyway, I was gone quick. That was a job to make a little money so I could support my art movie habit,
Well, thank God, because I love your art movie habit. And another one of my favorites that I guess you would probably call from that category is, of course, Gotti. It's an incredible one of the greatest.
Gotti's above even that. I mean, Gotti's an incredibly made movie. And, oddly enough, most people don't know, we filmed that in Toronto. And it was so funny. Our group of guys, these brilliant actors, it was like we brought the Gambino family to Toronto. And it's every night we're eating in the restaurants together. It happened. It came alive. And you see every bit of that in that film. It's one of the reasons the real guys say it's the greatest gangster movie ever made.
I could totally see that. Yeah, 100%. I absolutely love that. So I do want to let the audience jump back in, guys. We still a little bit cold? No audience questions? All right. Well, that reminds me, actually, I skipped over. I do want to ask about Virtuosity. Is that something that a lot of fans approach you about still, or?
Virtuosity was unfortunate. It's great. And working with Denzel Washington, I love Denzel Washington, and we got to work at that moment in time. The movie was oddly ahead of its time. It was about a month ahead of its time in terms of the technology. And so when the film came out, it just didn't catch. And it was Russell Crowe's first film in America, and it just didn't catch. And they knew what they were doing in the technology. And it's so funny, if the film had come out now or even a couple moments later, I think the film would have received differently. But what great people I got to work with in it, and it's a great memory. And for me, it was funny, when I finished The Untouchables, I had a bad habit, a good habit, but I tend to, on occasion, rewrite a scene or two. And, I call it the black pages. If you know anything about movies, we have colored pages. So I would call mine the black pages, and that's, my take on something. So I'm doing all this work studying Al Capone, so I figure I know, and so I would do that. So when I finished playing Al Capone, I guess I was kind of like a tiger by the tail. And, so I received I've had a few, but I received one of my blacklistings, from the Hollywood days. And it was from that, the studio. That's it, he's done, he's not going to work for us. But the odd thing is, 1 year later, the studio that broke my blacklist was the same studio, and they hired me for Virtuosity. So it was a 1 year, rubber. But I love the movie. I love the character, and it just was one of those ones that could have been great, but it missed.
I again do want to let the audience jump back in, because I feel like I'm hogging the mic, I'm being a little selfish. Angel comes in.
As Angel comes in again. Okay, so William, what was your hardest character to study in all this time, do you think?
There's no doubt about this answer. I've done all kinds of characters and the live ones and real people and everything, but the most difficult and the most trying and the one that pissed me off the most and made me have to dig the deepest in was when I played John Gacy. John Wayne Gacy was, I didn't want to play him. And I went to Chicago and I began to do my research on playing him. And unlike Capone, where everybody was like, yeah, the door open. When I went there for him, the doors started slamming in my face. People didn't want to talk to me. I felt a real vibe and I knew right away that there was more to the story than had ever been told. And I got pissed and I canceled everything I had to do for weeks. And I stayed in Chicago and I Hardy Boyed the living shit out of Gacy. I went everywhere. I met every player. I met all kinds of people. I met his childhood friend who was just so helpful in giving me the inside of, I went everywhere. And I was able to, by the time it's over with, get a real strong idea of who he was. I discovered things that were scary. I think I discovered, honestly, where there were other people buried. And I passed on, whatever information I told people, but, and there was just something about it. In fact, the building that I believe something like that happened in, that building has now been whitewashed from the Hall of Records. It's gone.
That's a good thing.
And
it is.
Well, it's an odd thing because it's an impossible thing to really do without super connects. And so it's gone. And, and that's, the city swallows you up. And it was like, it's those kinds of things. When you get really close to a character like that, I don't want to be there. But when I play a character, I can't judge him. I have to give him everything and try to find the truth,
Now, putting yourself all into that character, do you see any characters in the past that you've studied for and you find yourself the most relatable to that character, like that your personality is most like that?
You have your moments for things like that, of course, and you always have to use your instrument as what is the bottom of where it begins. But once you start doing work and you start being very specific and you start asking yourself very strong and specific questions, it changes your behavior. You can use different tools as well to change your behavior. That's why I can't stand what we were talking about the acting before, because it's just like, why would you do that to me? I don't know, why would I? And it's like everybody's playing the same fucking part badly, and it's like, but when you allow things to affect your behavior, as a human being, we don't necessarily talk straight to people. We look, we go, some people are, they know they got to make 10 phone calls. They didn't pay their rent. There's a million reasons their behavior is affected. And that's, the kind of stuff we, do. So, and that was, when you get into it, characters like this, these things began to become second nature. And you're surfing in a really weird area, When I finished playing Gacy, for instance, I got the hell out of Dodge. And I went and I played the Beach Boys and I went swimming for 6 months, because I just had to get the hell away from that fucking bastard.
Right, the character. Now, it's just one last one. I don't want to be a hog or anything, but what was your favorite error? I'm sorry, I know, I'm saying favorite. I don't want you to play favorites, but we're talking about years here, like decades. What was probably
I'm stuck. Somebody once said to me, you don't watch anything but black and white movies. And my reply was, well, I watch The Guns of Navarone. It's like, I love great movies. I love classic movies. They were the ones that taught me. My mom taught me. My mom gave me, the very first lesson in film came from Mom, and she pointed out everybody, all the players. And I understood things from a perspective of a great fan. and and finding those things and allowing yourself to do it. That's what the work's about. It's about affecting your behavior in a way that changes, what a character is. And it does, and it works. It really works, I mean, if I'm sitting here doing a scene and I have this strange image in my head, nobody knows it but me, but I have as a choice, I'm playing that, we're here doing this interview, but I'm playing there's this tarantula, slowly walking up my leg, but I only know about it, but that's going to affect my behavior a little, and it's these little things that we used to use, call them tricks, call them techniques, but things that change, affect your behavior. And then when you finally make all your choices, then you have to let it go and just let it happen. And, that's why it's not easy to do. I mean, it's easy to do badly, I can tell you that.
Of course, anyone can do it badly, right? We see reality TV all the time. We know they can do it badly.
I don't know what you mean.
No, of course not.
Why would you do
Soap
that?
opera. But thank you again very much. I don't want to take up the whole interview. So.
Great. That was a great question. Thank you so much. So, since you talked about how hard it was to shake off Gacy and playing the Beach Boys, was that the case at all for playing Gravano or Capone, that you needed to go play the Beach Boys or do this or that to shake those off?
Al Capone, you set aside, the things, those things, and you have, just a juvenile delinquent kind of a character. It's kind of odd. And so it's different. No, it's not. That wasn't a shake. Sammy, for all the things he did, it's not the same. I can't explain it to you. I hate, look, I condone no person committing crimes or hurting other people in any way. I hate it. But just the same way that the people acted differently because it was him, people personally felt betrayed because they knew him. And suddenly, he turned out to be this monster, and there's a difference. It's I can't explain it. It's a different kind of monster. Let's put it that way,
See that? So I do want to give the audience one last chance to jump in. Here we go. We got a question. Great.
Hello.
It's perfectly all right.
Can't take me anywhere. Anyway, William, as Chris said, you are the greatest actor on the planet. And thank you for coming. Thank you for coming here to Atlantic City. I saw you, I watched you in American Me with Edward James Olmos. I was blown away by the entire film. I was blown away by all the actors. What did you do to prepare for such an intense character as yours?
Start at the beginning. I went in to meet Eddie. When I walked into his office, he was very respectful to me, and I walked in, and I had just finished doing the water dance. So I was huge. I'm in that wheelchair, and I'm just big. And I walked in to meet Eddie, and I had a great meeting with him. He was very respectful to me and wonderful, but I knew that no matter what, that he was not going to give me that part. We were just going to have this great meeting, and then he was going to go, and that would be it. So I waited to the right moment. And just as I got up, I went to shake Eddie's hand, and I grabbed it hard. And I said to him, I said, "Give me 2 Budweisers, Holmes." And he just looks at me, and he goes, and I said, "I told you to give me 2 Budweisers." And Eddie looked at me and he goes, "Where'd you learn to do that?" It was and we sat down then and we had the real meeting. And he said to me, "Can you lose the weight? Can you do it?" And I go, "Yes." And then I made him really nervous because now he wanted me to work with a trainer, and it was awful. And I didn't want to do it, And finally, I had to disappear from Eddie too. I just disappeared. And I did my program. I dropped, I think, 60 pounds. And I showed up on the set and I had my head shaved. And I walked up to him, and he just looked at me because he's leaving me messages. You must answer my calls. Like, I'm like, yeah. But I mean, the movie is a great movie. It's not just a great movie; it's an important movie. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Buddy. You bet.
Thank you so much for bringing up American Me, too. It's such an incredible film. So before we wrap it up, is it...
That was a loud distraction. What the hell's going on there?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, some people breaking in up front. No. Just had to vouch for somebody, that's all. I vouched for them. So before we wrap it up, are we allowed to talk about anything that's upcoming, or is that still like strike, we can't do that?
I don't want to, at this stage of the game, I don't want to, talk about anything. Before the strike began, I did some work. I did some work last year, but, I'm going to lay off all that for now. And, but, we keep going, so.
Absolutely. Well, guys, be sure to keep going and head over to William's table because I know he has a million more stories to tell you. Get some pictures, get some autographs, and make some noise for the incredible living legend right here.
This is John Glover, and you are watching Fandom Spotlight. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Lionel Luther recommends it. Have some fun. Follow your fandom.